My name's Carl Frampton. I am a professional boxer. It doesn't come without hard work and dedication. You have to focus on things. You have to fight through adversity at times. And if you want something hard enough, you can achieve it. I know I can become a three-weight world champion. Went on to do more than I ever could have imagined at the very start, but I still know there's more, and that's the reason why I'm still hanging around this game.
Will Carl Frampton move back towards his dream?
My name's Carl Frampton. I am a professional boxer from Belfast. The real reason I went to boxing and joined the club was curiosity. I knew the local amateur club was a 2-minute walk from my house, and I wanted to see what it was like, and I didn't know what it was going to be like when I get down there. But the very first night I went to the club, there was me and a group of friends came down, and I was told to kind of sit and watch. I wasn't allowed to train the first night. I was 7 years old, so pretty young. And when I was 7, I probably looked like I was 5. So the coaches were kind of a bit like, maybe a bit too young to come down. I went down and I came back the next night and they allowed me to train, and that was it. I was hooked. I stayed there. I stayed there from 7 years old, and I'm currently still a boxer. I grew up in a loyalist area, so loyal to the Queen and Britain. The next neighbourhood along beside us was the New Lodge, which was a Republican area, which wanted nothing to do with loyalism, unionism, wanted Ireland to be an all-Ireland, and wanted Britain out completely, wanted soldiers out. So I grew up right on that interface, like one street away from it. Rough area, working class area. I also grew up in Tigers Bay when it was the time, at the back end of the Troubles. I seen the aftermath of a kid blowing himself up with a pipe bomb. I saw buses being hijacked, parked across my street and set on fire. I seen people shooting at cops and army with guns. I seen people shooting at Republicans and nationalists with guns. I seen petrol bombs. I seen things you shouldn't see as a kid. Sometimes, being from Tigers Bay, you would have had to drive through the New Lodge, the Republican area, to get into Belfast city centre. Sometimes we'd get a taxi in, as we didn't have a car growing up. And I used to always have this fear that if this taxi breaks down, we are fucked, like we are going to be killed. It was a stupid thing to think, but that's what I thought. And it was my mentality and my mindset at that time was, I'm from Tigers Bay, I'm a loyalist, everybody in the New Lodge hates me, and if something happens and I get into the New Lodge in a compromised position, I'm dead. It's stupid. It's a stupid mindset, but that's what I thought of growing up as a kid. For me, that was life, and that was just something that I get on with, and it didn't seem alien or unnatural for me. I wouldn't like my kids to live in that now, but that was just my life. That's what I knew.
From Frampton. Years gone by, he really has been an elite fighter. Remember when he beat Kiko Martinez in 2014 to become the IBF champion?
I knew it was good by the time I hit about 11. Like I knew it was a decent fighter. I used to be called, like, a lot of people who didn't even know my name in Tigers Bay, they'd see me walking from my house to the boxing club, and people would say, "There's the boxer." They would know me as the boxer. So I always had that kind of image, and you know, you imagine me walking down as a 7 to 11-year-old with a little rucksack, 3 nights a week, sometimes more, to the boxing club, rain, hail or snow, and people just got used to seeing me. Everyone in Tigers Bay at some point, my age group anyway, would have been in the boxing club trained. Some of them would have stuck it out for a couple of years, maybe a few weeks, a few days, but I was the one that stuck it out. It was a real turning point in my career when I was maybe about 21. I was still an amateur at the time, but I'd lost to a guy called Kevin Fantasy in the Irish Championships. And to be honest, Kevin was not a bad fighter, but what I wanted to do. At that stage, I knew it was going to be my career and I wanted to be a professional boxer. And I shouldn't have been losing to people like Kevin Fantasy. Anyway, he beat me fair and square. I went home, I was with, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, but now my wife, Christine. And I just had a talk to her and I said, look, I'm going to pack it in. What's the point of doing this if I can't beat guys like him? She kind of had a word with me and said, look, stick it out. She understood that I wasn't training how I should have been, and I was maybe putting 2 weeks of hard training in before a fight, which isn't enough. And I stuck it out, drew Kevin Fantasy the next year in the quarterfinals of the Irish Championships, training properly as an amateur but like a professional, and I stopped him, his corner through the talon, and that was a real turning point for me. I knew, like, if I put the effort in, I can do this and I can go very far. I always think about what would have happened if I hadn't have continued on, if I hadn't have had that talk with my wife, if I hadn't have rationally tried to think about why I lost to Kevin Fantasy, because I was very, very close to jacking it. I was very, very close. I was thinking about joining the army, actually. My whole life was boxing at that point. I hadn't done anything, I hadn't worked another job, I was focused on boxing, but I was losing to this guy. I was thinking, what am I going to do now? I ended up sticking it out for another year, and that year I beat Fantasy, I beat Tyrone McKenna, and I beat one of Ireland's greatest ever amateurs, David Oliver Joyce.
Carl Frampton knows that he is the new 47 kilos featherweight national champion of Ireland. He's defeated David Oliver
in the final of the All-Irelands, and that was the point where I knew. But very few people get that lucky, that it doesn't come without hard work and dedication. You have to focus on things. You have to fight through adversity at times.
Great domestic showdown. The IBF featherweight world title. Is Warrington going to retain, or will Carl Frampton move back towards
Fought
his dream?
Josh Warrington. First 3 rounds were the worst 3 rounds I've ever had in my career. I'd done well to survive them. I'd done well to stay on my feet. But at that point, I got beat up in that fight, and beat up pretty bad. In my head, the whole way through that fight, I was thinking, don't get stopped, fight back here, don't let the referee try and jump in. I didn't want to get stopped, I wanted to see the final bell. I didn't really believe that I could win that fight after about the halfway point, but I wanted to stay in there and fight back and show that I've got balls, really. I'm not just someone who's going to fall and quit and pack it in. In the first round, there was an exchange of punches, and I think, accidental obviously, but I think his knee has bashed mine. I had pretty severe bruising, kind of that covered the length of my quad, and my leg was hurting. It was hurting me. I didn't want to tell the corner, so I made a decision walking back to the corner. I can't tell Jimmy Moore that my leg's sore, because he'll think it's an excuse for me. He's looking for him to pull me out. So I made sure that a conscious decision, don't mention your leg. The leg was bad. It was that bad that afterwards, when I went to the hospital, and obviously I had severe bruising about my head, I was standing at the reception and my leg kind of caved in, and people thought, they kind of rushed around me, they thought it was something to do with my head, but it wasn't. It was just my leg was sore. I think that failure at times and defeats can be a good thing, because you can learn and you can improve from them. I'm always focused on the opponent. I'm focused on the fight. I was out running last night, and I decided last night I wasn't going to listen to music, because when I don't listen to music, I can think about the opponent that I've got to fight next, Jamel Herring. So I'm going through in my head shots that I think are going to work. I'm playing out how I think I'm going to get rid of this guy. I'm playing out different scenarios in the fight. I don't know if everybody does stuff like that, but that's something that I do, and it helps me cope with everything that comes with being under pressure in these situations. I've done it a few times, so it's not just for this next fight. I've done it for previous fights. I'm thinking about not only Jamel Herring, I'm thinking about walking to the ring. I'm thinking about different shots that I think are going to work against him. I'm thinking about shots that I think he's going to throw and things that he's going to try on me and what I'm going to do to counteract that. So it's a real, your mind is a crazy thing. Like all these mad things creep into your mind all the time, but it's about keeping that one-track mind, single-minded and focused on the objective. But I'm doing it now for Jamel Herring. I've done it previously for other opponents. I've done it for issues in my personal life that maybe aren't going well. Your mind's a very strong tool, and I think if you're strong-minded and you have a strong will and determination, you can do so much in life. It takes commitment, it takes hard work and drive and determination and sacrifices and everything else, but I think there has to be an element of luck in your career and things have to fall into place at the right time. And I suppose the more you train and the harder you work, the luckier you get sometimes, but things all have to fall into place at the right time. And they have for me, and I've done a lot in my career. I've been very proud of the things that I've done in my career, but I still believe there's more to give. And that's why I'm in it. I contemplated retiring after the Josh Warrington defeat. At that point, I'd done more than most people could ever dream of as a boxer, a two-weight world champion, unified, Ring Magazine Fight of the Year. But I didn't want to go out on a loss like that. I knew there was more to come. I knew I could still become a world champion, and that's the reason why I'm still hanging around this game. People have doubts. You know, everyone has doubts, and doubts creep in at certain times, but it's about what you do with that doubt, and you try to deal with it rationally, you try to think about it. And when I visualize things, when the doubts start creeping in, I try to get back to thinking of the positive things. How can you do something if you can't actually visualize doing it in your head? How can you throw a certain combination if you can't actually visualize that happening in a fight scenario? And these are just things that I've done and picked up over the years, and I continue to do it, and I will continue to do it for as long as I'm a boxer. Obviously, as a boxer, I go into training camps. I spend so much time away from my family. I've missed a large portion of my two kids growing up. I've missed a large portion of their lives because I've been away, and that's something that hurts me, and it's something that I feel strongly about. But these sacrifices, and that sacrifice in particular, it's something that I do to better their life. It's not just for me, it's for us all, it's for my family, and I do that because I would like to have a comfortable life. I would like my kids to have a comfortable life. I would like their kids to have a comfortable life. And these sacrifices that I'm making now go away, potentially making that happen. So, you know, I've missed things that have hurt me, and I shouldn't have done it as well. I realised I should have been at home at times where my wife had family members who passed away, and I wasn't at home for their funerals because I was training. And that's the selfishness of boxing. Realising that now, I understand that there's a fine line. I should have been home, and it's something that hurts me to this day that I wasn't home to be with her for these moments in her life. But that was the selfishness of it, and that was, you hear sportsmen talking about being selfish all the time to get to the very top. My whole attitude has changed a wee bit, and my whole outlook has changed a bit. At that time, I was extremely selfish. I don't think I needed to be that selfish. Obviously, top sportsmen need to be selfish to get to the top, but there's a line, and I crossed that line. And it's something, I've apologised to my wife many times about this. It's something that still plays on my mind, but things like that I've done. I've done it for whatever reason. There's moments that happen in people's career that, as defeats or failures, whatever you want to call it, if you learn from them and improve, then it'll still be classed as a defeat, but it's not really a failure then if you're learning and improving from them situations. These are massive moments in people's careers that either define them or break them.
And across the ring in the blue corner, wearing the navy blue shorts with white trim, from Belfast, Northern Ireland, Carl, the Jackal Frampton.
My last fight, I fought a guy called Darren Trainer, who I was expected to beat. But the real goal was Jamel Herring, because this was a fight to get me ready for Jamel Herring. So people say, is it important not to look past Darren Trainer and focus completely on Jamel Herring? It is important to focus on Darren Trainer for that specific fight, but it's always important as well to have your eyes to the future for the end goal, which is Jamel Herring. So you need to have short-term goals, but you need to have a long-term goal as well. My long-term goal was always to become a world champion. Things change as well as your career develops and progresses. So when I became a world champion against Kiko Martinez, my next goal was to defend it. My next goal was to become a unified champion, which I done and I succeeded. My next goal after that was to become a two-weight world champion, succeeded in that. And my next goal is now to become a three-weight world champion. People say you either have it or you don't have it, but I didn't have it for a while when I was messing about and losing to people like Kevin Fantasy that I've spoken about. But then I got it, and I got it back. I think I've always had it, but then I just realised that I did have it and I got it back. It's a state of mind really, and if you want something hard enough, you can achieve it. The weather is getting pretty shit at the minute, and there's times where at night time it's getting dark early. I don't want to go out running. I don't want to be running the streets. I don't want to be doing sprints up hills, but I do it because I've got this drive. That's probably the main thing for me, is drive and determination and wanting to be better than the next man. If we were a table tennis table down there now, like if we got that out now, like I'd want to smash you, even though I'm not a professional table tennis player. But that's just me, that's just my head. I want to win at everything. I'm a pretty skillful fighter, but that didn't come naturally. It was Graft that got me to be where I am. There's so many more naturally talented fighters than me in Belfast when I was a kid growing up. So many more. But I just had something different that they didn't have. I had a different mentality, a different mindset, and I pushed on and strived for more. And that's the only difference. If these kids with the talent had the mentality of me, they'd be unbelievable fighters, but they didn't. Boxing is full of people who could have been. I wanted more. I had a different mentality. I've had so much pain in my career. I won a fight 2 fights ago with 2 broken hands. Pain is something that is in your head, and your mind will always give up before your body will. And pain is just something you have to deal with. Everybody deals with pain. And people have excuses all the time. It's about whether you say them. It's about whether you give that excuse. I've talked about the injury to my leg with Josh Warrington since the fight, but I left it a long time. I didn't say it after the fight. I didn't say it weeks after the fight. I left it for a long time because he won that fight fair and square. Things that you want in life won't come easy. Very few things do. So having the mindset to know that there's going to be ups and downs and bumps along the way, you're going to have to get through them to succeed, and that happens in not just boxing but everyday life. I think you can always improve if you feel like you are the perfect fighter, if you feel like you throw a combination the perfect way, then you'll think that there's no room for improvement. There's always room for improvement, and that's what makes a fighter a better fighter. Taking risks in boxing, there's very few do it, and I think that the people that do it, I've taken risks in my career, and other people have done that as well. People respect that, and it's about taking the right risks at the right time. Everyone has their own worries, everyone has their own hardship, but things will always get better. And these things may seem like a worry now, and they certainly are a worry, but in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, in a decade's time, they may be something that you look back on and think that was the part and that was the moment that actually made me the success that I am. So I do worry about people, but things will always get better. I want to be known as a great, and look, I'm already. If you'd have granted me a wish at the start of my professional career and said, you're going to win a world title, but you're going to lose it in your first defence, I think I'd have taken that at the very start of my professional career. So I've went on to do more than I ever could have imagined at the very start, but I still know there's more. Two-weight world champion. I know I can become a three-weight world champion. My next fight is against Jamal Herring for the chance to become a three-weight world champion. One of the only British fighters to ever have done it. The only Irish fighter to have ever done it. I think that if you look at the Brits that have done it before, I probably rank as number 2 in terms of who has become three-weight world champions. It's a chance for me to potentially put myself into the Hall of Fame, and that's why I'm doing it. I know my kids are proud of me and they will be proud of me when they grow up, but I imagine what it would be like. You know, I'm very proud of my dad. Me and my dad are best mates, and I love him dearly, but imagine my dad had been a three-weight world champion. How proud I would have been in that. So a lot of the reason is for my kids. I want them to talk about me. I want the people of Belfast and the people of Northern Ireland to remember me fondly. And this is part of the reasons why I do it. I don't want to be, you know, a flash in the pan type where people stop or forget about me after a couple of years. I want to go to pubs in 30 years' time in Belfast and someone buy me a pint and say, I was at that fight, I remember that fight in New York you had with Leo Santa Cruz, or I was there when you beat Jamal Herring to become a three-weight world champion. I want people to remember me like that. That's what I'm aiming for, that's what I'm striving for, and I'm very, very, very proud of the support I get. Never imagined that I would have had the support that I have at this point, but I just want to keep pushing. I want to do it for them, I want to do it for myself, I want to do it for my family. There's so many motivational factors for me, and that's why I'm doing it.